Lizzie Hearts, right. Everyone knows her, destined to be the Queen of Hearts from Ever After High. At first glance, she's all off with their heads
Right.
and ruling Wonderland, like super strict. But, haven't we all felt that pressure sometimes? Like to live up to what people expect, even when deep down it doesn't quite fit.
It's really interesting, isn't it, how quick we are to judge, especially in a world like Ever After High. Like it's all fairy tale perfect on the surface. But underneath, there's this whole idea that maybe Lizzie's struggling with. It's called role engulfment. Basically, in psychology, it's when someone's entire identity gets taken over by the role they're supposed to play.
So she's been told her whole life, be this tough queen, that's it, no other option.
Exactly. And imagine the weight of that, right? Not just any queen, the Queen of Hearts. That legacy she's inheriting, let's just say it's not exactly known for, being warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, more like ruling by fear.
Yeah.
And those Wonderland rules, crazy.
Exactly. And in the sources, there's even a part where Lizzie admits that she enforces those rules not because she likes it, but because she feels it's the only way people will respect her. Almost like she's putting on a performance.
Oh, that's kind of sad. Having to be someone you're not just to get approval. I mean, haven't we all been there at some point? Maybe not ruling a kingdom, but definitely feeling that pressure to fit in, even if it means, like, silencing parts of ourselves.
Totally. It's universal, that feeling like you're trapped by what people expect, even if it comes from a good place, love, tradition. Lizzie's story really shows what that can cost us. Like we sacrifice who we really are just to fit this role that might not even be right for us.
Okay, so we've got Lizzie, tough queen to be, but maybe feeling super pressured by it all.
Mhm.
But is there more to it than just trying to please everyone, like something deeper going on?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. The sources hint that Lizzie's harshness, that off with their heads persona, it could actually be covering up some deep insecurity, what we call imposter syndrome.
Oh, imposter syndrome. That feeling like you're not as good as everyone thinks, you're a fake waiting to get caught out. I think we've all felt that,
For
right?
sure, it's super common, especially for women. There's so much pressure to be perfect in like every area of life. And then you've got Lizzie, she's literally a princess, meant to be a ruler, and she might be fighting those same feelings,
Yeah.
feeling not good enough.
Whoa, mind-blowing. You wouldn't think someone in her position would have self-doubt. It just shows you appearances can be so deceiving.
Absolutely. Makes you think about everyone we meet, right? People who seem so confident, totally got it together, but inside they could be dealing with their own struggles that we don't see.
So Lizzie's more complex than we thought, dealing with the pressure of her role and maybe these secret insecurities too. But is there any part of her that, like, rebels against it all?
There is, and this is where we start to see her strength, her individuality. Think about it. She chose to go to Ever After High. She could have stayed in Wonderland, done the whole
Yeah.
traditional queen training thing, but she didn't.
Yeah, that's a pretty big move. Leaving her kingdom, going to a school with, like, fairy tale characters from everywhere.
Exactly. It's a step outside her comfort zone, a way for her to, like, figure out her own identity, a little bit of defiance even.
Like she's saying, okay, I'm going to be Queen of Hearts, but I'm going to do it my way, figure myself out along the way.
The sources even mention integrative identity, which is basically blending your heritage with your own personal growth. She's not saying no to Wonderland, but she's not letting it totally define her either. It's about finding that balance.
That's powerful. I mean, if you think about all the times in your own life when you had to, like, push back against what was expected, maybe even rebel a little,
Yeah,
just to figure out what really mattered to you.
exactly. It reminds us that we don't have to just be what people tell us we should be. We can make choices, step outside the box, write our own story.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we see Lizzie's pushing back, exploring who she is. Anything else that reveals, like, the real her under the surface?
There is, actually, and it might surprise you. The sources reveal she has this passion for card design.
Wait, hold on. Lizzie Hearts has a hobby, and it's not yelling at playing cards.
I know, right? It's fascinating. Adds so much depth. Because in Wonderland, cards are usually weapons, symbols of power, control. But Lizzie's choosing to engage with them totally differently. It's creative, it's self-expression.
It's like she's taking back what cards mean, turning fear into something beautiful and personal.
Exactly. And the psychology of it is interesting too. Creative outlets like art or music, writing even, they can be so good for our mental health, especially when we're stressed or overwhelmed.
So for Lizzie, her card designs, it could be a way to cope with all that pressure, find some peace and control in a world that's often chaotic and demanding.
Could definitely be. And it makes you wonder what kind of design she comes up with, right? Are they whimsical and playful, or do they show that darker side of Wonderland?
I'm picturing her sketchbook full of, like, hearts with thorns, spades shaped like crowns, diamonds that sparkle like tears.
That's a great image. Shows how even tiny details in a story can tell us so much about a character. And it makes you think about your own WN creative outlets, right? What do they say about you? How do they help you cope, express yourself?
Ooh, good questions. Okay, so we've seen Lizzie's vulnerable side, her rebellious side, and her artistic passion. She's clearly way more than just the off with their heads queen we thought she was. But how does she handle relationships, especially coming from a world where it seems like emotions are kind of like suppressed?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. And it brings us to one of the most unexpected and transformative parts of Lizzie's journey, her friendship with Kitty Cheshire.
Kitty Cheshire, talk about a wild card. She's the daughter of the Cheshire Cat, always grinning, always causing mischief. How does someone as like structured as Lily even be friends with her?
That's the beauty of it. Their friendship challenges everything we think we know about Lizzie Hearts, and it's going to reveal a whole new side to her.
Okay, I am hooked. Tell me more.
Welcome back. We're still diving deep into Lizzie Hearts.
Still thinking about all those layers we found.
Mm.
Who knew the future Queen of Hearts was so, like, deep?
You never know with Ever After High, right? Nothing's ever just surface level.
So true. Where do we even go from here? What other hidden stuff are we going to find?
Well, last time we were talking about how Lizzie has trouble expressing emotions, and it makes you wonder, right? How much of that is because of Wonderland? Like the whole emotional vibe there is different.
Yeah, Wonderland's not exactly known for, like, warm fuzzies and sharing your feelings.
Yeah.
More like chaos and tea parties gone wrong.
Exactly. It's like the Queen of Hearts, her whole thing is those epic temper tantrums. But it's not just a character quirk. It kind of reflects how emotions work in Wonderland. Everything's big, dramatic, used as a weapon almost. There's no subtlety.
So growing up like that, no wonder Lizzie keeps stuff bottled up.
Yeah.
It's like she's learned that showing your feelings makes you weak.
Some sources even say Wonderland has a culture of emotional suppression. People are taught to hide what they feel instead of being open about it.
That's actually kind of creepy when you think about it. Imagine growing up like that, always told to, like, put on a brave face no matter what's going on inside.
Definitely not healthy. And it can really mess you up long term, emotionally, mentally. And this is where Lizzie's story gets really relevant to us.
Okay, I'm all ears. How does this apply to, like, us regular folks who don't live in Wonderland?
Think about how often WE do that same thing. Maybe not as extreme as Lizzie, but still. How many times have we smiled when we were actually stressed or sad?
All the time. Especially with social media now, everyone's showing their perfect life. It's easy to feel like you got to keep up, even if you're falling apart inside.
Exactly. And like we talked about before, keeping it all bottled up, not good for us.
Hmm.
Lizzie's story is a reminder that we gotta find healthy ways to express ourselves, even if it feels weird, even if it's not what we're used to.
But if Wonderland is so repressed, how does Lizzie even start to break free? It seems like she'd need a huge wake-up call or something.
And that's where Going to Ever After High comes in again. It's not just her being independent, it's her stepping into a whole different emotional world.
So Ever After High is like the opposite of Wonderland when it comes to feelings.
Kinda, yeah. It's full of fairy tale characters from everywhere, so many different personalities, experiences. I'm sure it's a place where acceptance, empathy, actually expressing yourself, those things are encouraged, not hidden.
That's a big contrast to Wonderland, where, like, saying how you feel might get you in trouble.
For sure. And think about the friends Lizzie makes at Ever After High, right? We've got Kitty Cheshire. She's a total whirlwind of emotion, never predictable. But there's also Apple White, known for being kind and caring. And Raven Queen, she's super independent, always questioning the rules.
It's like she's building this, like, support group of friends who represent all these different parts of herself, different ways of feeling and expressing things.
That's a great way to put it. Almost like she's building her own emotional vocabulary just by being around people who are open and honest, showing their true selves.
That's beautiful. Like, she's finally learning it's okay to be vulnerable, to laugh, cry, be angry, be everything that makes her, well, human. Or I guess fairy tale character.
Exactly. And there's a powerful message there for all of us. Who we spend time with really affects how we understand and express our own emotions. If we want to grow emotionally, to become more aware, more caring, we need people around us who get that, who support it, people who make it safe to be real.
This is giving me all the warm fuzzies about friendship, but let's not forget, Lizzie's still going to be Queen of Hearts one day. She's going to rule Wonderland. How does all this emotional growth change, her leadership?
That's so interesting to think about. Usually when we think leader, we think strong, decisive, maybe even kind of emotionally distant. But Lizzie's story throws that out the window, doesn't it?
It totally does. Are you saying, like, maybe being emotionally smart, being vulnerable, those are actually good things in a leader?
It's definitely worth considering. Imagine a queen of hearts who's not just feared, but actually loved and respected. A leader who gets her people, who empathizes, who's not scared to show her own feelings, and who makes it okay for everyone else in Wonderland to do the same.
That would be huge E for Wonderland. But wouldn't that make her a weak ruler? Like, people would take advantage of her kindness.
That's the old way of thinking, but Lizzie's story shows us it doesn't have to be that way. Strength and vulnerability aren't opposites. I'd say true strength is being able to embrace both.
So a leader who can be tough and be compassionate,
Mm.
make hard choices, but still get how it affects people emotionally.
That's it. It's a more, I don't know, human approach. And honestly, I think the world needs more of that kind of leadership. Leadership that values connection, empathy, understanding.
Mind blown. We went from off with their heads to leading with empathy and vulnerability. Lizzie Hearts, the unexpected revolutionary.
It's amazing what you find when you really look deeper, isn't it?
Totally on board with that. Okay, before we head to the last part, where we'll uncover even more about Lizzie, any final thoughts for our listeners?
I think it's worth asking ourselves, what are the wonderlands in our own lives? The places, the systems, even just expectations that might be stopping us from being who we truly are? And how can we, like Lizzie, be brave enough to break free and be our full selves? Strengths and vulnerabilities, the whole package.
Ooh, those are deep. Gonna need some time to think about all that. Listeners, join us for the last part. We're wrapping up our deep dive into the awesome, complex, surprisingly inspiring world of Lizzie Hearts. And we're back. Last part of our Lizzie Hearts deep dive.
Glad you're still with us. We've really gotten into it with this one.
We have. From, like, role engulfment and hidden insecurities to emotional suppression and, wow, leadership that embraces vulnerability. Lizzie Hearts is so much more than just a future queen, right?
It's been a trip, hasn't it? And honestly, I think we've learned some pretty deep stuff about like just human nature in general. But there's one last thing I want to look at. Maybe the most unexpected part of Lizzie's story, but also maybe the most important.
Okay, lay it on me. What's this last piece of the puzzle?
It's how Lizzie deals with relationships, you know, all the messy, unpredictable stuff, specifically her friendship with Kitty Cheshire.
Kitty Cheshire, yeah, the Cheshire Cat's daughter. Always grinning, always stirring the pot. That's a pairing I never would have, like, put together. Total opposites. How are they even friends?
That's exactly what makes them so interesting. Remember how we talked about Lizzie needing control, always following the rules?
Oh, yeah, the total Wonderland thing. Off with their heads, that whole vibe.
Right. And then there's Kitty, pure chaos, unpredictable. She's always pushing boundaries, messing with the status quo, basically turning Lizzie's world upside down.
So how does Lizzie even deal with that? Is she, like, constantly trying to keep Kitty in check?
You'd think so, right? But it's not really like that. The amazing thing is Lizzie actually lets herself be influenced by Kitty's, free spirit.
Wait, Lizzie Hearts, future Queen of Hearts, lets herself be swayed by a Cheshire Cat.
Sounds crazy, but yeah. And that's where the real growth happens. Remember we talked about how good it is to have relationships that challenge us, that push us out of our comfort zones. Kitty is like the ultimate challenge for Lizzie.
She's like everything Lizzie's been taught to, like fear and control, but in person.
Exactly. But Lizzie doesn't reject Kitty. She embraces those differences, lets herself loosen up a little, see things from a new perspective, even embrace a bit of the chaos.
I'm starting to get why this friendship is such a big deal for Lizzie. Kitty's not just a friend, she's like helping Lizzie grow, showing her different ways to be.
That's a great way of putting it. And there's even more to it. Remember Lizzie's struggles with showing her emotions? Well, Kitty actually helps her open up.
Okay, now I'm really curious. How does Kitty do that? Does she, like, force Lizzie to talk about her feelings?
Not really. It's more about how Kitty just IS. She's not afraid to express herself, be silly, laugh, cry, just be totally authentic. Doesn't care what anyone thinks.
So just by being herself, Kitty's giving Lizzie permission to do the same.
Exactly. It's subtle but really powerful, like a different kind of lesson. Kitty's not telling Lizzie what to do. She's just showing her a different way to be, a way that's okay with vulnerability, with being real.
That's pretty amazing. Makes me think about the people in my life who've helped me be more open with my feelings. Just by being themselves,
It reminds us how important the people around us are. They shape who we are, who we become. If we want to grow, learn, get better at understanding emotions, we need people who inspire us, challenge us, and help us be our best selves.
This is making me rethink my own friendships. Are my friends helping me grow? Am I with people who bring out the best in me?
Those are such good questions to ask. And remember, it's not just about finding friends who are like us. Sometimes the best relationships are with people who are totally different, like Lizzie and Kitty. Those friendships can push us, help us find parts of ourselves we didn't even know were there.
This has been like such an eye-opener. I never thought a deep dive into Lizzie Hearts would teach me so much about leadership, emotions, and the power of friendship.
It's been awesome exploring this with you. It just shows you, even in the craziest stories, there are real lessons to be learned.
Totally agree. Okay, as we wrap this up, what's the one thing you want listeners to take away from all this?
I think the biggest takeaway is embrace your complexity. Don't be afraid to show your vulnerable side, to push back against what's expected, and to have people around you who support your growth, even if they're totally different from you. Like Lizzie Hearts, we all have hidden depths. It's up to us to find them.
That's a perfect way to end it. Thank you, listeners, for joining us on this amazing journey into the unexpected world of Lizzie Hearts. Until next time, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and keep embracing all those hidden parts of yourself.